on Thursday, July 13th, 2023 to order. We'll move to the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Marcus, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Thank you. Yes, I would. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to roll call.
Commissioner Martos,
Here.
Commissioner Ing,
Here.
Vice Chair Rebelos,
Here.
Chair Israelit.
Here. Okay, approval of minutes. We have two meetings minutes to approve, April 13th as well as June 8th. Were there any corrections submitted or any amendments that needed to be made?
I did submit a couple of corrections. I'm just looking for them.
They're not in that packet.
Ms. Brewer, say again?
The corrections, the Chair Martos change is not in that packet,
Yeah,
but I did make the change electronically.
I was falsely labeled as Chair Martos, but correct it to Commissioner
Yeah, I didn't even.
Martos. Yeah. Observed the title. And I was corrected. Yeah, okay. That's the only corrections I saw.
Anyone else make corrections or any changes? Okay. Does anyone want to move that we approve the minutes from April 13th?
So move.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Commissioner Martos, vote.
Commissioner Martos,
Aye.
Commissioner Ing.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rebelos.
Aye.
Chair Israelit.
Aye. Okay, moving on to the meeting minutes for June 8th. Does anyone want to move that we approve those?
Sure. Good.
Move to approve the minutes.
Okay, everybody. Okay, thank you very much. We all,
If we would like to second.
no, it's okay, thank you. Let's vote.
Commissioner Martos,
Aye.
Commissioner Ing.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rebelos.
Aye.
Chair Israelit.
Aye. All right, thank you so much. Next we'll move to the public comment section. Members of the public may speak on any item that is not on the agenda today. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future commission agenda may do so during the public comment period. The Ralph M. Brown Act prohibits the commission from acting on any matter that's not on the agenda, and the commission chair may adjust the time limit in light of the number of anticipated speakers. I think we have Mr. Pestner present. Kurt, yes?
Just, I want to make one comment regarding the hybrid setting.
Oh, sorry.
Nope.
Go ahead.
As we point out, tonight's a hybrid meeting. There are multiple ways for the public to participate in tonight's meeting. One is obviously if you're in person, you may come to the mic on and speak on any of the items, roughly about 3 minutes or to the chair's discretion. The second way would be if you're watching via Zoom, you can use the raise your hand feature. And again, we will allow someone to speak within 3 minutes. And the last one is if we haven't gotten, you can send an email to public comments, all one word, at burlingame.org. And Ms. Brewer or myself will read whatever has the email, again, roughly in that 3 minute period. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Mr. Pester, would you like to speak?
Thank you for letting me speak. And thank you, commissioners and staff for your service. I'm Kurt Pester. It was writing for the past 25 years at 1435 Bellevue Avenue, Unit 301, Redwood Crest condominium. My comments reflect the discussion of unanimous vote of our HOA board to bring the need for traffic calming at the intersection of Bellevue Avenue and Alma Road to the attention of the city. Our concerns are that vehicular traffic is heavy with a number of condos and apartments and more vehicles on both Bellevue Palmer. The intersection is also a route for students driving to high school in the morning. The vehicular traffic speed varies from 15 miles an hour to 40 miles an hour. Pedestrian traffic is also present at any hour of the day. Pedestrians jaywalk through the intersections and right out between the parked cars at the one crosswalk on Bellevue. With the parked cars, the sight line coming out of either one of the two driveways, the Redwood Crest is limited. Even coming out slowly from our driveways, myself and other residents have had several near misses, either with pedestrians not paying attention or with vehicles. Our HOA board suggested to the city that traffic be calmed in the following ways. Stop sign down Bellevue at the current crosswalk. A stop sign on southbound Ulmer Road at the current yield sign. A stop sign on westbound Bellevue before the driveway at 500 Ulmer Road across to the driveway at 1435 Bellevue. A crosswalk at the westbound Bellevue Avenue stop sign, and a crosswalk that goes all the way across all the road. I'm happy to discuss these recommendations with the district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Okay, are there any emailed public comments or any other?
I have no emails.
All right, we'll close public comment and move to the discussion action items. First item is the City Council Vision Zero Committee, and Mr. Wong, you're gonna about that, right?
Through chair, yes. Just give you a brief, the deeper discussion will happen when the subcommittee forms. All right. Thank you, Chair Ursula. Again, this is regarding the nomination of 2 traffic safety parking commissioners to the City Council Vision Zero Committee. Earlier this year, at the beginning of this year, the City Council, during their goal setting session, identified Vision Zero to be part of this year's program and identified council members Beach and Stevenson. They assigned them to this committee, as well as to work with not only staff, but 2 members of the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission. In a kind of a nutshell, the Vision Zero is an international movement to reduce fatalities as well as injury-related collisions regarding all modes: bicycles, motorcycles, pedestrians, cars, etc. So when the committee forms, Mr. Sy will be working with our director on that, and they'll give you the bigger picture of everything that's involved with it. So again, after we nominate the members, once I let our director know, we'll go ahead and set up a meeting. I think it's anticipated for at the end of this month or beginning of August. And just to kind of go over it, try to get everyone's ideas, because there's the frequency of the meetings hasn't been determined yet. So you guys will have some input on that when, what days. Again, all that hasn't been determined, but it will be at that point. So with that, again, steps are appoint 2 members. We'll set up the meetings. Also, staff has, and Mr. Sy has actually applied for a Vision Zero grant. So that's going to be funding a lot of this. And we expect to get that grant. And then once we have that, we will work with a design team that has done many of these Vision Zeros to help us along. And then again, the subcommittee will determine how often they meet, and then as well as the outreach that we'll do to the public. So with that, turn it back over to the chair and let's find some committee members.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. I think during my ill-fated first chair year of 2020, right before the shutdown, I did attend a presentation about the Vision Zero with, at the invitation of Mayor Emily Beach. So I think it's really a cool where you're just trying to limit deaths of all types. Is anyone I mean, I'm kind of interested because of that introduction, but are any of you members interested in participating in that? Great.
So could you elaborate a little bit more, or this going to be traffic calming measures we're going to look at installing, or I mean, what are we talking about?
I believe it'll probably be all the above, any traffic calming measures
Mhm.
that we can do, pedestrian safety improvements, education. I mean, it's pretty much anything this committee or commission has discussed. And then some
So
capital improvements.
through the chair, so how is that much different than what we currently do? I mean, we look at all those issues regularly.
And it'll identify the locations throughout the city, right? We were focused on what comes in, right? Whereas this is opening, it's like the general plan where you were part of that. You sit down, you go step by step through all the areas, and then you develop this document that we will review, like the bike ped master plan or the general plan. So we deal on the smaller level as folks bring it in, but this is being proactive and then taking the big identifying everything.
And if I might also, like, just from the presentation, it's, I think it comes out of Sweden or somewhere, comes out of Europe, and it's a specific plan with, specific suggestions and examples of models that have worked elsewhere. So it's kind of an opportunity to look at what's been done elsewhere and what works. And then, of course, it sounds like there's grant money that is available, so it's a specific doable type
Okay.
paths.
Okay.
I mean, I think through the chair, I think all members of the committee are probably interested in this to some degree, but I think probably I just don't think that I have the time commitments to give it the due attention that it's probably going to deserve. And I think it's well in hand with any other member.
Yeah, I think it would be great, but I understand you have a young family and other demands on your time.
So do we have any idea of how long this committee will be active?
Through chair, the process could be a long one, because again, you're reviewing, you've got all the data to look through. It's at least a year. I know that much.
So I'm not sure how best to, it sounds like you're interested, right?
Well, I'm not on any other committees, and but
Yeah.
I'd be interested even if I was on other committees.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right, well then, and Athen, you're also interested?
Right up my alley.
Okay, well, I'm willing to step away. I mean, I think I got very excited about it, and then, I didn't know what our city would be doing about it, and it's been years. But I'm happy if you two would like to do that. Now, do we have to vote or officially nominate, or can we just come to a group consensus as we are?
I think through the chair, that it's the chair's duty, your discretion, you may assign 2 members to it.
Okay, excellent. Well, then, Commissioner Martos is not currently on any subcommittee
Oh, please.
and it's dying, chomping at the bit. And Commissioner Revelis, this is right up his alley. So I nominate you both.
Thank you.
Accept.
I'll be an understudy, a backup if something should change. Yeah.
Procedural questions through the chair. With Commissioner Lee's absence, does she have any way of throwing her hat in the ring, for lack of better terms, or
I thought about that.
consider without her because she's not?
I think we have to consider without her because she's not here. Is there a deadline? I think is she going to be absent next meeting as well? I think.
Through chair, I believe next meeting, she should be here.
Mhm.
How about this? Well, again, it's not necessarily a vote, but it's
Mhm.
chair's discretion. So I'll let our director know that we have 2 very interested members. And then we can ask Commissioner Lee what her interest is, and then if she's interested, then you have a three-way to narrow down if that's fair.
Okay,
I mean, through the chair, I think, not to speak out of turn, I think this is precisely the type of thing that Commissioner Lee is super hyper focused on. So I would be remiss to say like, hey, I feel kind of bad if she didn't have a chance to express her views and her interest.
sure. I understand. So let's tentatively appoint the two commissioners. And then in Commissioner Lee's absence, and should she feel strongly, then we'll revisit the issue. Okay, I think that's fair. So nice to work well together. Great. All right, Mr. Wong, then shall we move to the introduction of the 2024 street resurfacing conditions?
Absolutely. So as we did a couple months ago, we showed you the streets and the comments that we got back from the 2023, this year's street resurfacing program. So, and again, we just want to share it with the community so we can obtain some feedback. And we will forward this to the bicycle advocates as well, who aren't here tonight, but we'll get them this information that they that since they're the ones the last time tended to make most of the comments on it. So again, this is our 2024 project. This project will occur next year. Again, as we talked about a couple months ago, you know, when we have a report that points out the pavement condition of all our streets. Pavement condition index is the PCI, so it scores at 0 to 100. And we can do different treatments, whether sometimes you'll see like we just do what looks like a patch of the roadway to fix a section, or the full resurfacing where we grind and we put in new asphalt. There's other ways of doing it, but we pretty much stuck with this because sometimes there's a coating you can put on top of it. But if any of you've gone through some of these coatings, you have to stay off the roadway for like, you can't drive on it for like 5 hours while it cures. And that's a major inconvenience for many of our residents. So we've tended to go the harder route of doing less, but doing more substantial work. So with this, here are the 9 sections that we have. As you can see, the PCIs vary, and our average PCI is again in the 70s, which is, and these in the 50s and 60s is still fair and to good condition. I think the one that's got a higher score there, and maybe we might just be doing some dig outs there. But again, these are the streets that are our lower section. Some agencies in the Bay Area, actually, this is their average. So we're dealing from a nice hand here. Pointing out the locations: Broderick Road, Cowan Road, Oxford Road, Vancouver, and this is right in front of McKinley School for those.
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
Airport Boulevard between Lang and Beach. Coincidentally, we are working with the city of San Mateo. If you've been out there, there's a traffic circle kind of out there on Airport. And it's the jurisdiction of 3 of us, San Mateo, ourselves, and the county. And we're trying to, we've had some calls about it's people confused as they go around. Do they go around it? Do they cut it? And so we're working with them to better identify that. So this works well because we were trying to determine the funding. So I didn't find this out until we had that conversation with San Mateo, and then we found out that this was an identified road. So that works out well. Concord Way, and then Airport Boulevard from Anza to roughly the lagoon, and only the northbound direction. If you've been out there, when we were doing, when Facebook was out there and they were tying in some utilities out there and some sewer, they tore up the road. Originally, they were just going to do replacement, but there was so much torn up that they had to resurface. So at that point, a member of the public pointed out, hey, you guys are resurfacing. And so we took that opportunity to go back to design. There's a class 2 facility in one direction out there. We're going to mimic that on the other side, but that's why we're only doing the northbound section. That southbound section has already been done. So with that, again, hope to attain feedback, if not from the commission, from the interested public members. And we hope to get that feedback by the end of September. So that gives roughly 2 full months and then some. We'll take back those comments, review and consider them for putting them into the plans. And then again, like we did last time, we'll report back like the comments received, just to let everyone know why we could or why we couldn't do it. And again, we tried to bid everything out in the spring, so we're ready for construction in the summer. And especially pointing out
Rose.
Roosevelt. We'll definitely do the construction there in the summer. Obviously, we do that to avoid messing it all up. And with that ends that presentation.
Thank you very much. Again, this isn't really just discussion. This is more of a informational item, or is this something that you'd like us to discuss as a committee?
Through chair, if you'd like, you may discuss it, but it was more to provide this for you, and if you have questions, definitely I can answer them, but I don't think you'd have a discussion on that just because it hits you so cold.
Anyone with questions for Mr. Wong?
I can wait for questions. I have a comment. One small,
Sure. Go ahead.
so just a small comment. So the section of airport from San Mateo to number 1. I actually frequent that section of trail.
We met out there.
That's true. Thanks. Actually, you're right. So the new trail that goes along the bayfront from Seal Point up to Facebook there, it actually dumps right out onto airport sort of blindly. So like if you're riding a bike, there's a little stretch right there between the new bicycle and pedestrian paths and the new path that belongs to San Mateo, where there's just kind of a no man's land. There's nothing really on the road. There's a dirt and sand pedestrian path, which that in of itself is an issue. But if you're exiting that northbound coming from San Mateo into Burlingame, you have to merge into the road with your back to the traffic. So I just wanted to point that out. Yeah, that's exactly it. Right. That's exactly it.
This is the section.
Yep.
Right, where the,
Yeah.
sorry, the trail, oh, this is an older one, because the trail is basically,
Mhm.
Yeah.
okay.
So it's just that short distance. So I just wanted to point it out. I'm not gonna speak on design or anything, but
Sure, and we took a look at that because it also ties into, there's a ramp over here at the intersection that hops you up and gets you onto the
exactly.
ramp. So yeah, we'll take a look at that.
Fantastic.
And yeah, and this is also a section that we had on this year's program, the 2023. And the bicycle advocates or the BPAC, the community BPAC at the time wanted to pull it off so they could, make more comments on it. So this is something we're aware of, and so it's on this year's project.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, commissioners? All right. And we'll move on to the informational items. Are there any public comment related to informational items?
I don't have any emails or there's no hands raised.
Then I'll close public comment for that.
Leave someone
I'm sorry, did you?
ready to do something.
I'm sorry? Oh, well, this would just be a public comment about these specific items. We actually public comment on non-agenda items, very beginning of the meeting. I'm sorry? There isn't really a
Through the-
free time.
Through the chair,
Yes.
your discretion, if you wanted, if you wanted to open up with comment once again, and with agreement with the remaining commissioners, we could open up for 3 minutes. If you want to allow someone to speak.
Is this about an item on the agenda or off the agenda? Okay, we're sort of constricted so that if it's something that's on the agenda, you have to talk about it at that spot in the agenda. So if it, Oh, okay. Why don't you go ahead then? Is it okay with you, Commissioner? Wow. So we'll go ahead and give you 3 minutes to go ahead and address.
Beyond acceptable, so if we can get that down, that would be.
Okay, thank you. All right, then at this point, we would move on to any community group updates. If anyone online, any emails?
No emails, no hand raised.
Thank you. All right, moving on to engineering division reports.
All right. Thank you, Chair Israeli. We've just got a couple for you this month. Again, actually, we jump out of order on this because I think you guys want to spend just a little more discussion on the first item. Mercy traffic calming. I understand, talking to my colleagues or Mr. Yang, who's now working on this one, the implementation. The speed cushion should be installed within the next couple of weeks along Alvarado, Benito, and Adeline. So we just had to do a little bit more outreach to the folks that where the addresses where the cushions were going to go, just to make sure. We didn't get any comments. We just wanted to make sure, given just to even though I think at the last meeting we had those addresses on there, but we just wanted to check twice. But Lion Hope traffic calming project, we've completed our the data, which included acquiring new streetlight data where folks are coming from and where they're going to, that information, speed counts and traffic volume counts. And we have enough, as you see here, there's 193 survey respondents we've got. So we've got enough of it, but we still haven't closed the survey. So for anyone that's out there that's interested, the link's there and it'll close pretty soon. It may close any day now. I mean, Mr. Sai wasn't able to control that one yet, but it's definitely winding down. And, I think last month we reported we had about a little over 100. So how many people we're getting we're getting diminishing returns. So if we get one more bump because of tonight, great. And with that, let's go back to BIS. I think Chair Israel indicated just kind of the time frame. So we were talking about the pedestrian improvements along there to kind of improve circulation. So we were waiting for the curb ramps to be installed. And last week we found out that with our sidewalk program, they've moved up the two locations here up on that list. So we'll get the ramps over at Marco Polo as well as the ones on Casada. And with that, the striping and then the rapid flashing beacons get installed. And then the last item was on the school that we had in place before school started was a restriction sign. So coming out of the school, you can only make a right turn out of their driveway. You couldn't go left back up Casada. And then we would also make sure working with the school so folks know early on that here's the direction you need. When you exit the school, this is the direction you need to go. With that, obviously you're gonna have some questions, but yeah, we'll take some questions on that.
So I had to go back through the chair, Mr. Wong. The card said for Lion Hope traffic calming that the survey was going to be open until the end of July.
Okay,
Can we keep it open till the end of July?
we can do that. I just,
Okay. I know things may be slowing down, but it said end of July and people kind of wait till the last minute to do.
July will end before we know it.
All right. Yeah, it's a couple weeks away.
Commissioner Eng, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, maybe just questions first. So with this notification period that you were just kind of at the onset for BIS, and it seems that everything seems to be very sequential. And is that required? is there any way we could do notifications in parallel? My concern is that if we are not willing to install physical indications of what the rules and regulations are, no one's gonna pay attention to it. You can send as many emails as you want, you can have staff tell them, but unless someone's either standing there directing traffic and or DPD has the resources
Yeah.
to do that, or you're gonna get school staff to do it, again, I think that they have the resources to do it. How are people gonna know? And I think that's gonna be the biggest challenge and it's not gonna succeed.
Yeah, good point. And just, I mean, I can't remember how many restrictions. I know Commissioner Martos has done it, but we've reached out to the neighborhood because typically the neighborhood, you know, they feel a little differently on some of the restrictions and we just have to guide them into it. Like typically they're worried, we've allowed them that they can go contrary to some of the restrictions because they're in that block. And letting some of the folks know that has kind of eased the introduction of it. So we just want to let them know that and not, because when we had the last meeting, we were still kind of kicking around, does this work? But we hadn't brought in the neighborhood yet. So just trying to bring the neighborhood in. Otherwise, you know, you could see what happens if we threw up some restriction signs and then open it and, you know, direct the parents. But then the neighborhood's going to be questioning, like, literally, where did they come from? So it's just trying to ease that into. And yeah, obviously, if we would have it at this meeting, but we would need to do notification. And so for this meeting, it wasn't there yet, but that's why, and we'll talk about it later on in the agenda, but that's something we do in August.
So I guess the question I have is that, given this timeline, are you suggesting that the school year is going to start and the signs are not going to be?
Yeah, I mean, potentially. I mean, through this commission, with this turn restrictions, we haven't had to go through, unlike the speed limits or parking restriction signs, those go to the city council. If, say in August, we discuss this and we're fine with it, the signs, we could put them in, we could put them in that the next day, that type of thing. Yeah, it may not happen that way, but that's the ability we would have here. So school starts.
I should know this. I think it's the 4th week of August or 3rd week.
Okay, so potentially they could be in, but it'll be a tighter, it'll be tight, right? Because obviously our next meeting is August 10th.
And perhaps this is kind of off the wall thinking, but I would assume you actually want to put them in sooner rather than later. They can freak out now. They'll get used to it by the time the school rolls around. You put it in then, they're going to freak out then, and no one's going to pay attention to it until something actually happens.
Yeah, and again, there was an HOA or some way of contacting the neighborhood. We can notice the neighborhood. We can attempt to notice the neighborhood and then discuss with them, you know, get them to, no different than we did for Mercy, try to get a group of them together to discuss on site and just walk them through the restrictions and how they, you know, what the purpose is, as well as how, like, what their limitations are. But we can try that, but that one, there's no guarantees on that, but.
Well, I mean, I understand there's no guarantee that you're going to have full buy-in.
Yeah.
At least if you present the options early on, we know what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And work with it. When you start it close to the school year, then you're pushing everything during that time. And
And it's already
got a
happened.
bad
No,
feeling
agreed.
about that. So.
No, agreed. And that's why I wanted to pull it back a little bit, but we also wanted to get everything in. So it was trying to balance that, but I'll work with Mr. Sy and we'll try to see what we can do is do a mailing to the immediate neighborhood or the folks on Clarice, the folks on Casada, and then go from there and have some work this summer.
I'm certainly interested in hearing how the other commissioners feel, but I just feel like the sooner we can do this, the better.
I see your point. I definitely see your point.
Yeah, I mean, I'll, if you guys don't mind, I would like to comment since that's specifically our subcommittee, but you know, we as a commission approved that plan it's been 3 months ago. And we wanted to have it something starting to happen before school is out. And now school is almost in and we don't have anything yet.
Yeah.
And I understand about the curb ramps and moving the crosswalks, but it's, we really missed a window of opportunities. It's kind of frustrating. I have a couple comments. One is, how long does it take to get the signs once we decide we are going to put them up? Do they have to be ordered? Is that going to take weeks? I just would be curious. And then as far as like noticing neighbors, I mean, this isn't like the first time we've done this. We did this for Hoover, we did this for Roosevelt, and we did this for McKinley
And Lincoln.
and Lincoln. So, I mean, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. As I recall, and when I was new, when we were doing it with McKinley, we had noticed people and they came to one of our meetings and we presented it. So I'm just trying to think of what is the fastest way and most efficient way that we can move forward without this taking so long.
The other option is we could hold a special meeting before and then introduce it to give us a little bit more time and just specifically have it. So that's another option. But again, we'll need just some time to notice, a week to notice, let folks know. Again, the summer is difficult, and that's why what happened the last time when we approved it, right after it was, school started. So that's an option for one. The signage, so I don't want to speak for our corporate, but we do have those signs are up at the other schools or whatever, made by corporate staff. So getting that, they just have to have, and then they probably do, that's a common blank size as they call it. So we can have those, and we can even have those made now, because obviously, I probably got some down in the city hall from the other locations that we didn't end up putting as many. So we have those turn restricted. We can get those so that the material shouldn't be an issue. So it's really just getting the folks aware of it a little bit, just so we're easing them into it. And then, the signs we have quickly, so. I'll leave it to the chair to see what direction you want to take. If you want to have a special meeting, or the next meeting again is August 10th, and put it on there.
I'd like to ask my fellow commissioners how you feel about this. Do you want to have a special meeting addressing just that so that we can hopefully get things in place prior to the school year so that the PTA and parents can be taught about this and we have, approval for signage? Commissioner Martos, this isn't your first rodeo. You've done a couple.
Well, yeah. Hoover was probably the pathfinder for something like this. And it took a while for us to educate people, for people to abide by the rules and the circulations and then the left turns. The sooner we can get the information out there and the more repeatedly we remind people of these things, the more effective it's going to be. It really took us quite a while up at Hoover to make the circulation patterns work, and the left turns and no left turns, whatever they were up there. So I would be in favor of having a special meeting to go through this and discuss it in more detail and come to some resolution.
Thank you. And just a follow-up question, did you notice neighbors and have them come for public comment at a meeting like that for those signs?
We did not. No. We didn't have a special meeting for that. That was
No,
a regular.
we had a meeting, but it wasn't a special meeting.
No,
Okay, so you did, I'm sorry, I meant you noticed neighbors, they did. come.
they did. Yes. Yes. Mhm.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Reynolds, I sort of skipped you on the, the first bite thing. Now you can have a first and second bite at the same time. How do you feel about, what do you think would be the best way forward?
It sounds to me like there's an urgency there. So I would, I don't want to take the time to do it, but I would like to be able to wait to a regular meeting, but I think we do need to, I think that's the smart approach to have a special meeting. I'll just go ahead and just say, I think it should certainly be before the end of July, not into August, because we're meeting August 10th anyway. So then if we're just talking about a matter of days, but I would say, we're at the 13th today, so probably, sometime within the next 7 to 14 days.
And I think 7 days is a notice period.
yeah, we at least need to have a week's time to make sure everyone gets his stuff. And then, I think in addition, maybe we'll also, draft Mr. Sign will go knock on some doors and make sure, folks are aware of it. I mean, in lieu of putting a sandwich board out there saying, special meeting, which we probably will do as well.
Thank you so much. And Commissioner Ing, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, just a couple last thoughts. I mean, one is that I think because a lot of these elementary schools in the Burlingame have turn restrictions implied upon them at some point in time, having it done at BS might not really ruffle that many feathers because they're already used to it for the school that they're already at, right? So that's one point. The other is that, let's be clear, we're not trying to get this through the process to implementation faster without due process. We just want to know, what are the objections? What do we need to know before we get to that point? And the sooner we have to do that, the more time we have to do something about it before we get to the school year. And so I just want to be clear about that.
No, and that's understood, but I'm not even, again, when we did McKinley, there was some, obviously people just thought they couldn't. Then we said, well, how many folks are in the area are doing this turn during that period, right? Maybe not many. And if they are, there's one or two, and that's not going to do it. It's having, we're changing the flow of traffic, so having that flow. So no, it's just bring them in so they're part of it, and just don't want to step on their neighborhood. Like, again, how many times have we heard, we've sent notices and folks come, we were never noticed about this, where in this particular case, maybe, that might have been true. And I want to avoid that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all of your comments. It sounds like we're all in agreement that a special meeting worthwhile for this. I will leave it to you to shoot out emails and make sure that we all can, as many of us can as possible, and set that up when room is available and noticing can be done. Any final comments on this issue? Anyone? Since we jumped around a little bit. Okay, just want to cut it off. All right. Thank you. And was that it for the engineering report?
Through chair. Yes, that was it.
Thank you so much. Let's move on to the police report. All yours.
Good evening, thank you. So I am going to present reported collisions for the month of June. We had a total of 34 collisions reported for the month of June. Of those collisions, 19 involved another motor vehicle, 10 parked motor vehicles, 3 were with a fixed or other object, and we happen to have 2 bicycle related collisions this past month. And I will go into those a little bit here. 6 of the collisions occurred on private property, split down the middle of with another motor vehicle or parked vehicle. Of the accidents reported, I believe we had 10 involving minor injury and 2 of them with major injury. 7 collisions involved DUI. That accounted for 2 of the injury collisions. Collision factors amongst all these collisions. The most common were unsafe driving, right of way violations, and then this month we had an anomalous increase in DUI related collisions as a common factor. Of the bicycle collisions, there was one that occurred on the 100 block of California Drive. There was a bicyclist traveling northbound on California Drive. A vehicle was also traveling northbound and attempted to pass the bicyclist and did not give enough of a space cushion. And there was a minor clipping resulting in minor injury, complaint of pain. The other bicycle collision was on the 900 block of Rollins Road. This is in the area, I believe, possibly near Larkspur, I believe. And in this situation, a bicyclist was traveling southbound on Rollins Road, and the vehicle began backing out of a driveway at that area and hit the bicyclist as they were traveling southbound on the roadway. So that accounts for the 2 bicycle collisions. In my report, I went through them and tried to identify some items that maybe would pique your interest. There was an incident that occurred at California Drive in Sanchez. That's about a little more than halfway down on the first page. accident number one, ending in 1461. That collision was a vehicle that had failed to yield right away at the intersection. So they occurred within the intersection. On the second page, way down, collision 1618. That was a 1400 block of Broadway. That was a rear end collision. The driver to the rear had was found to be having inattention while driving and didn't realize there was a vehicle in front of them and collided with that vehicle. So that's the cause of that one. Also a rear end collision, Broadway and El Camino Real, couple roads down. That was a similar situation. Rear end was somebody not paying attention. And if there's any questions about any of the other collisions, I'd be happy to discuss.
Go ahead, Commissioner Eng.
Yeah, there's two. I was just hoping to get a little more detail on. The first one's on the first page, ends in 1431. Devereaux and Balboa, which is close by Lincoln. Okay. I was just curious if you had more details on that one.
Certainly, that was a vehicle that was driving down the street and driver was distracted and sideswiped a parked vehicle.
So no pedestrians involved.
No pedestrians involved. Yeah, there were no pedestrian related collisions in the month of June.
And then on the second page, ending in 1618, Broadway and Cappuccino. I think I'm just more tuned to now anything that's happens on Broadway. Any of those cross intersections, it's kind of notable now. But can you give further detail?
That was the one I spoke of.
Oh, sorry.
Where it was a rear end and
Yep.
found to be due to inattention by the driver to the rear.
By the commissioner, no problem.
Commissioner Revelis, any questions?
Sure, I just have a couple. So the Rollins at Larkspur, northbound Rollins, that was 7:50 AM. So that probably was over 18, right? Probably a commuter. I mean, you can't assume if it's a commuter or not, but
I believe all the people involved were adult.
okay. And then can you just provide some more detail about the Truesdale and Skyline? It's the second to the last. on the page.
Those were criminal investigations related to DUI. So there was a DUI collisions and
Because it looked like, I didn't see the accident happen. I live right there.
Mhm.
And so that, obviously Truesdale's on my radar and I had a lot of concerns about that particular intersection because I see people getting confused there every day.
Mhm.
And I also see, I get up at 6:30 in the morning. So a lot of times the roads are still damp. And I hear the cars skidding down Truesdale because they don't expect to see a stop sign.
Right.
But the question I had about that one is, I know there was at least one other vehicle involved, so just more or less concerned about like, what did they strike other than? Was it just the one vehicle that they struck or?
So those are related. There was a vehicle that struck another. The driver was under the influence or suspected to be under the influence. They left that scene and ended up in another collision. And that's when we caught up with them and conducted an investigation and investigated as DUI related.
The few months I spent in police academy in my youth, I still carry and I nailed that one just by looking at it. Very proud.
So yeah,
Thank you.
there would be nothing related to those collisions that would need to be rectified by our committee here.
Commissioner Marcos, do you have any questions?
I was curious about the bicyclist that was hit on Rollins. So the bicyclist was going south on Rollins?
Southbound on Rollins.
Okay,
And
they were on.
they were on the side of the road that parallels the side.
Yeah,
And I believe there's a series of apartments on that block.
yeah, okay. At 8 o'clock in the morning, yeah, that's a pretty congested area. A lot of cars parked on the road.
This particular vehicle is exiting one of the driveways,
yeah,
backing out.
yeah, okay. Okay, thanks.
Thanks. My only comment is like, that was so many more DUIs than we usually have, and a lot of hit and runs, felony hit and runs too. Was it because do you think early, holiday celebrations put it, because the 4th was on a Tuesday? I mean, it seems really strange.
Well, unusual, but one thing I've noticed in the last 6 months of doing this is 1 month, you just might have an uptick in one particular area of collision factor, and then the next it might be something else. And regrettably, month of June, it seemed like an uptick in the DUI incidences. And then, like I've mentioned in the past, a lot of the hit and runs, it seems like maybe a slightly lower hit and run count this month, but we do get also online reports and late reports of hit and runs as well that are minor. Like I said, the side swipes or scrapes.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Could I have one go back?
Sure.
Mr. Wong on Rollins, we talked about the traffic calming through the chair.
Mhm.
Did we, I don't recall, was there a bicycle lane that we were proposing on Rollins for that traffic calming?
Through chair, if I can double check, but I'm pretty sure. So along Rollins, there is in the bike ped master plan, there is not a bicycle facility identified. They're the only one, I believe, is just where it crosses up by Cadillac. But I will add that and we received the grant to review we'll do some traffic calming along that entire stretch. So
Mhm.
again, this one sounds like it maybe wasn't speed related, but
No. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, let's move on to Teaspoon Chair and Commissioner Communications. Were there any communications that were? Mr. Wong, I assume like the ones that are emailed to us as a whole and your feed on those are already in your purvey and we don't need to address those.
or we will be addressing it.
Or we will be addressing. Anyone else have anything specific?
Actually, sorry, through the chair.
Yeah.
One thing that, actually, I thought when Mr. Sai was going to be here tonight, that came up during our discussion. So we had a discussion about the bike parking facilities at BIS.
Oh, yes. the
And,
bike lane.
Vice Chair Rebels was there as well. And, a lot of good discussion about where to locate them and how it could flow in conjunction with the school safety traffic plan. But one kind of interesting anecdote that we were given while we were there is that the architect for the school, when talking about some of the construction, also mentioned that the parking circle, the area in the middle, that potentially was going to be extended so that the exit or the egress from the parking area would flow directly into Clarice without any turn. So they would literally move it and it would, so we were all kind of looking at that as like, hey, this is a great result. Mr. Sai kind of compared that same comment. It's not really set in stone yet if and when it could happen, but it certainly sounds like it's been budgeted for. So
How was that not on our radar?
I don't know, but it's a pleasant surprise.
We met with the school district. Okay.
Your chair we talked about that would have been like the ideal thing when yourself and Commissioner Wetton were on this, but that wasn't something that they were able to do at the time. Again, even moving the bike facility to the other side wasn't something when we were discussing, it was something feasible. Because we pointed out that would be, so again, I think Mr. Sai mentioned some reasons that may have been occurred because they weren't able to do more on site. So
But certainly if that
No.
could take effect, I think it would be very, very, I mean, it makes a lot more sense. And I think it would actually simplify the overall flow. And might actually reduce the need for some signage because you don't need it. Other than just doing a turn right, you just straight. Exactly. So
Wow.
I just want to share that.
Wow.
Sorry, I didn't share it earlier too.
And I want to thank both of you commissioners. I was supposed to be there and was supposed to go there and had a medical issue with family member. I couldn't make it. So I appreciate that you guys both went. I really do.
I was
Wow.
15 minutes late.
Anything, okay.
Sorry,
Wow.
through the chair on that, I think, but I believe that's not happening immediately, right?
No. And it's still
Mhm.
we're out there, but certainly, yeah, I think it's a positive that it could happen at some point in time. So,
And we'll proceed with what we're doing,
Yes.
then, that would be an icing on the cake.
well, and to be fair, that was part of the discussion was where you put the bike cage if you put it on that side. And so when the architect heard that, he's like, well, we could move it farther down or towards Davis. So that if they do shift it, they don't have to redo it again.
Oh, I see.
So trying to think in terms of if it happens, does it really affect what they're trying to do? And hope the answer is no. It sounds like it won't.
Excellent. Wow. Yeah. Great. Okay. We can now move on to committee reports. Are there any public comments related to the committees?
I have no emails and no hands raised.
Thank you. Let's see, Burlingame Avenue pedestrian safety improvements will probably be skipping over since Commissioner Lee is the only member in that committee and she's not here.
Through the chair, I did, since our last meeting, I was able to walk the area with Commissioner Lee. We walked the different locations and we identified things that staff can try to look at more immediately. So I gotta get back to that. I've been off, and so, but yeah, so I guess that's the update for that committee. We have a little progress. We walked Burlingame Avenue as well as Howard and as well as, parts of El Camino, but
Okay,
so.
excellent. It's just nice to know that work's being done. Next is the BIS schools safety. I think we've addressed that several times already this evening. And we will look forward to a special meeting and I appreciate all of you that time. And then the big star of the evening is the US 101 bicycle and pedestrian connectivity.
So I mentioned to Andy when we were at consulted. Basically, since Adrian, Commissioner Lee is out of town, I didn't think it would be appropriate to make the presentation because it's her and I on the committee. And it also gives me a few more weeks to finish the report. Yes, it's pretty much all done. So I should certainly have it for the August meeting.
Awesome. Okay. Well,
If I or Commissioner Lee anticipate not being here, I may try to push it.
okay. Yeah, I hope to see like animated slides and everything.
Oh, no, I'm gonna try to make
Fireworks.
it, I'm gonna try to make it easy. I need to, I'll actually be reaching out to you, Mr. Wong, to find out a way to do this so that I don't take up an hour of
Sure.
through line by line.
Okay, great. Well, I wasn't unaware of that. I thought that was this evening. So, okay, then we move on to future agenda items. Mr. Wong, I think we mentioned maybe one of them tonight, but what else have we got?
Oh, no. And so the thought that Commissioner Revelos indicated that maybe he'll punt to, Vice Chair Revelos punt to September. I may take him up on that. I've spoken to some of the residents, Bernal Hillside. You've seen the communications come on that. We may have that here. There's a couple different options. So with our California Bike Facility project, that's now construction's underway where they're starting to saw cut the bulb out. On portions of the east side, currently it's no parking and in the code, in our municipal code. So we'll need to just update that but invite the folks along that stretch to see what the restriction we would do there, what their concerns are. So I've walked it and we can talk about that, but that may be on there. Again, US 101 is steady and as well as, but we're advancing this one, the other one was going to be the BIS turn restrictions, have that, but we will have that sooner than later though, as it sounds. Those are some of the things. And then I did forget something. It's more of an FYI. The Murchison Truesdale Davis project. By next week, the survey for that should be going out and I'll send you all the link and it'll be in e-news for the rest of the folks. But just wanted to point that out that that's underway as well.
Okay, but that won't.
That's not, I'm sorry, that's not a discussion.
That's-
That's something I should have been earlier on. But I did forget that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have anything that you? I think that's going to be a pretty full meeting, with or without Vice Chair Relis's presentation. So I think we've got enough for our meeting. So then we'll look forward to hearing back from staff about the special meeting and when that can be scheduled and notices can go out. And that concludes this evening's meeting. We are adjourned.